Last episode, we talked about our trip to New Orleans, and we covered our visit to
Muriel's. That's where the seance room was, and we also ate dinner there, and that's also where the ghost table is.
Yes.
Yeah, some crazy shit happened there.
We also talked about how Nan had some ghostly encounters at some of the other bars that were on Bourbon Street. But this week, we're going to talk about some really cool places that we were able to see that we had talked about previously.
Welcome to the Mormon to Medium podcast, where we'll talk about spirituality, the paranormal, religion, and my journey going from Mormon to medium. I'm Nanette and Brad. Thanks for listening. Now let's go have some fun.
Don't be afraid. Close your eyes. There's a moon overhead.
So in previous episodes, we talked about the St. Louis Cathedral, which was made a basilica by the Catholic Church. And there's actually a statue out front of the Pope with a couple of little kids and all the things, and I guess he came and visited. But in a couple of the places that we studied, they had said that there was a big photograph or painting of Pierre Antoine. And so we searched high and low in this cathedral.
Yeah, we were in the St. Louis Cathedral looking all over the place for this.
Yeah, we even asked someone that worked there, and there is not a picture of Pierre Antoine. But we did find Pierre Antoine's name and Dagobert's name, and it was dated back in the 1800s. And it was the time that they served, so they had, when they began and when they ended on both of them. So we did find their names there.
Yeah, interesting to me was that the stained glass in the entire cathedral is not actually stained glass. It's actually just glass that's been painted. And when we talked to one of the rectors there, he let us know that the Catholic Church had actually removed all of the stained glass and had it sent back to the Vatican, which is super weird.
Did he tell you why they did that?
No, he didn't.
That seems so strange. Maybe because of the hurricanes?
Possibly. I don't know. But
we did notice, though, that it needs some upkeep.
It does need some upkeep.
Yeah, like the clock on the outside of it's really rusty. Some of the paint is peeling inside. Kind of sad because it's a really beautiful cathedral.
Yeah, it is. Well, and there's so much history there, which is one of the main reasons we went there, right? Is because of that history and because of some of the ghosty tales that you had heard about.
Right. So if you remember right in previous episodes, Pierre Antoine was the friar or father or whatever you want to call him that was in charge the day that the fire broke out on Good Friday. And he made the decision not to ring the bell to warn the city, and the city burned down. Well,
and not only did the city burn down, but they attribute nearly 500 deaths to that fire because he didn't ring the bell.
Yeah. And here's how hot it got. The people were just crispy, and parts of them were everywhere. We found this out while we were there in New Orleans. And so rather than pick up the pieces and go properly bury them, because, you can't put pieces together because there's so many people, they just bulldozed over it and built the city on top of it. So think about that for a second, because that whole city is buried on top of people that died in a horrific way. It is weird energy.
Well, and that's not the only time. So that particular area, the cathedral, was the place of another basically mass murder.
Right. So to the side of the cathedral, you've got the presbytere, and then on the other side you have the cabildo, and these buildings are identical. Okay, but the cabildo, the word means council, and it was the location of the colonial government. And when the Spanish first arrived after the 1762 treaty, it went from French hands to Spanish hands. So you had a lot of the Frenchmen that were pissed off. They were furious, and they had been traded in an act of war, and they were uninformed of the treaty for an entire year. And so when they found out, they naturally rebelled. The Spanish had wished an end to all of this. And so that they had their very best general. His name was John Alejandro Bloody O'Reilly.
Bloody O'Reilly?
Yeah.
So he was actually...
He was
Irish.
I don't know about that.
He was probably a drinker, too. Well, his name was O'Reilly.
O'Reilly and Bloody. But they wanted him to quash the rebellion that was going on. And he had arrived in 1769 with 2,000 troops. After killing the first of the rebelling Frenchmen he came across, he invited the rest of the leaders of the French to come to the Cabildo. And he fed them and talked to them and was really nice. And then guess what he did?
What?
He scurried right down next to them and he stayed true to his name. He handcuffed the men, brought them to the intersection of Esplanade Avenue and Frenchman Street, where he executed all of them. So thus, Bloody O'Reilly, he killed all the Frenchmen.
Well, and one of the things we learned while we were there is that he didn't just kill them. He didn't just take them out and hang them. He took them out and very much tortured them and made it bloody and made it a show so that no one else would even think about revolting.
Right. And just a fun fact, the musically inclined Frenchman Street, because you hear all the music and stuff on Frenchman, it is where the Frenchmen lost their lives against the Spanish in the 18th century.
Oh, interesting. And that's why it's Frenchman Street.
Uh-huh. So today, I didn't know this when we were there, but the Cabildo is actually a museum, and it has hundreds of artifacts, and it even has a bronze death mask that belonged to Napoleon Bonaparte.
That's
so
cool.
You won't want to miss it. We missed it. So
we did miss it. We didn't realize.
There was so much to do, and I mean, we walked 21 miles. So there was so much.
Well,
we just didn't go in there.
It's just the architecture and everything. It's just a beautiful city.
So beautiful. The gardens are beautiful. The people watching is untouchable.
But look, nobody's here really to hear about the architecture or the people watching. They want to hear about the ghosts.
The ghosts.
Let's talk about ghosts.
So let's talk about Pirate Alley, because we didn't know the stories on Pirate Alley other than, the booty.
The pirates would sell their booty.
The glory holes, right? But we didn't really understand. But when we were walking, it was nighttime. It was dark, and we were walking down Pirate Alley, and there's just this one area where a philo erection, like heavy, crazy energy. We looked at each other like, it's right here. It's right. Something happened right here.
Yeah, just like a cold spot as you walked through, and it didn't matter how many times we walked through. It was always in that one spot, that one area.
Yeah. So we ended up going on a tour, a ghost tour, and they took us back to that place. And there's an absinthe house that's right there right now. And if you don't know what absinthe is, it's a liquor that smells just like, and I guess it tastes just like black licorice.
Nasty.
And Brad hates black licorice. Even if I eat it, he won't kiss me.
Oh, it's so gross. It is so gross.
I love black licorice, but I didn't taste it. You could smell it out on the street. But we found out that this absinthe house, this bar that is right there on the corner where we were feeling this energy, used to be a prison. So there were men and women and children that were held in this prison, and it was deplorable conditions there. So a lot of the people even died in these cells under the conditions. And it could be for something as simple as stealing bread that these people were putting these.
Like Jean Valjean.
Right. Les Mis.
Look down. Look down. Sorry.
But that's why we were feeling what we were feeling. There was a lot of exchange that happened there.
Well, and one thing about Pirates Alley, people will go there to get married because there's a certain spirit that haunts the alley even to this day. And people will get their photos taken during their weddings to see if they can capture his ghost in these. And he's got an interesting story.
Yeah, there's a pirate by the last name of Hicks. And actually, he was a young boy, and he was captured by the pirates. So by Lafitte's group of pirates as a young boy, and he was raised by the pirates. So he soon became an assistant or second in command next to Lafitte. So he worked right near Lafitte all the time. And just as the War of 1812 was starting, Hicks had fallen in love with this beautiful, gorgeous Cajun woman. And they were madly in love. And then she ended up being pregnant. And he didn't want his child to be illegitimate. And it meant a lot to him for them to be married, especially before he left for the war. So there was no preachers to be found anywhere. And all they could find was a German preacher that was in a jail cell. So he actually is married between the bars. They brought the preacher to the back part of Pirates Alley, and he was married through the jail bars there in Pirates Alley. And then he took off for the war, and they say that he was killed in the war. And so oftentimes they say it's either Lafitte or Hicks that is found walking in the early mornings down Pirates Alley, and you can hear the bells ring, wedding bells ring, and him singing. So I kind of go for it's going to be Hicks, not Lafitte, that's walking there, because that's the last time he was truly, truly happy.
Oh, that would make sense. Well, and to be fair, we didn't hear singing, whistling, or walking.
No, but we felt that crazy energy through there, and it hit us all every single time.
Yep, it did. So that was definitely an interesting area.
Yeah. You know what? New Orleans is just full of that interesting energy. It is crazy, bouncy, haunted energy everywhere.
Yeah, it really, really is. Well, and we didn't end there. We also went to the LaLaurie Mansion.
That was weird. Yeah. So the LaLaurie Mansion is currently up for sale. It's been for sale for 5 years. It was $12.5 million, and now it's down to $9 million. So if any of you want to buy a haunted mansion, there you go.
Right.
It's really beautiful, though. It's locked up really tight, bars all around it, but the courtyard is lit up so you can see in. And our friends that were with us got a bead on a window that the curtains were moving.
So the LaLaurie Mansion is way down Royal Street, and it gets pretty quiet. There's not a lot of people down in that area. We were down there pretty late. Big, beautiful full moon. So we got some really cool pictures with the mansion and the big full moon behind it.
Yeah.
But you can just feel a heaviness. It's heavy there.
It is heavy there. And, I think part of me was a little feeling guilty because we were there to see what we could feel. And there were some horrific things that happened there. It's almost not right. In a way. I mean, I know that our intentions are good, but there were a lot of other people there too for the same reason. And it was at a great cost to these people that were tortured.
Yeah.
Just horrific. I can't even believe anyone would be so vile and evil that they could do things like they did to humans. But the energy is really crazy there. I have to back up because I mentioned in other episodes that when we were talking about the LaLaurie Mansion and looking into the history, I had a young Black girl come to me. She had little tiny pigtails and she was maybe 7 to 10 years old. And she showed up, and I'm just like, in my mind, I'm like thinking, is she attached to the LaLaurie Mansion? And if she is, why is she coming to me? I mean, in my mind, if I can see her here at my house, why can't I help her here? Why do I need to go there? Type of thing. And so I kind of just filed it away and kind of was like, if she's supposed to be with the LaLaurie Mansion, we'll see when we get there, type of thing.
Yeah.
So when we got there, Kristen was actually talking to a girl by the front door where they kept feeling like a cold spot. And she was encouraging this young girl that kept telling her mom that she can feel something in this one area. I personally didn't feel anything. And so I kind of smiled and went and stood in a window well to the LaLaurie Mansion and just kind of got quiet for a second and breathed. And I shit you not, I had the young girl come through.
You might want to explain what you mean by a window well, because people, especially like in Utah or places that have basements, a window well is very different than what you were talking about.
This isn't a basement. This is like it starts at the main level and it's just kind of like a doorway, but it's a window. And I just, they have bars on the windows and things like that. It's not like you can actually get into the place. So I did some deep breaths and kind of blocked out everything that was going on around me just so I could see if this girl goes with the LaLaurie Mansion. And sure enough, she showed up and I saw her, but she was on the other side of the window. And I said, so what do you need? And she started banging on the window and she says, let me out, and kept screaming, let me out. And I kind of took me back because I was like, oh, okay. That's just so weird. Let me out. Like, how come she can't get out, but she can come to me when I'm at home, but she can't get out of the LaLaurie Mansion? I'm like thinking it was kind of odd. So I kind of sat with it for a minute and I didn't really know how to help because I could feel there was like this block around the whole place. Like whoever's in there is staying in there and they're not getting out type of thing. I don't know if they've had it worded or whatever they've done, but.
Which would make sense, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I would even say that, when the fire broke out and the LaLauries were busted for what they had done, the townspeople destroyed the place, right?
Yeah.
I
did.
could absolutely see them, setting wards and having, voodoo priestess come down to, to help make it safe.
Right. The thing that gets me, though, is if there's evil energy in there or dark energy in there or even spirits left in there, why would you not clear them or help them cross or just completely clear the space completely? Why are they in there? Why is someone that's where I was at? But
Right.
it just didn't feel right. I sat with it and we watched the windows and we kind of walked around the place for a second and then headed out. But it kind of just ate at me because I was like, if I can help, I want to help, but I'm not feeling like I'm being instructed exactly what to do. So yeah, I think that it kind of felt like it was more evil or dark energy than, yeah. We probably don't want that out.
No, it would make sense. That's like, how's that shit there? But whoever is getting the house is going to inherit a whole bunch of shit too.
Well, and that's the thing. If you look at the history of the house, no one has lived there for longer than 5 years. And most people that have lived there have gone bankrupt or had something horrific happen. So it's like the house doesn't want anybody there. And it's sat now for 5 years. So I'll bet you someone will buy it and then they'll be there for less than 5 years. And cycle will keep happening because it's been happening. I mean, it was once a girls' school, you said before. Is that right?
Yeah, it housed orphans for a time during yellow fever.
Yeah.
It's been a number of different things.
Yeah. So, yeah, not a lot of good things have happened in that house. And anyway, we came to the conclusion that that was not, it was not a good energy there.
Yeah, it wasn't an innocent energy that it may have presented itself as. And that's a whole different take, right? How can that dark energy present itself to be, innocent or good? And does it happen often?
I mean, if you think about people, that there can be innocent looking people that have dark intentions, right? So, I mean, I think it just crosses over to other energies and spirits and stuff. It's the same.
That makes sense.
I mean, in my world, it's the same. It's not demons. It's dark energy. It's dark choices. It's imprints of bad things that have happened, and that naturally is going to be like a darker entity.
Got it. That makes sense.
Crazy though, right? And then we got to attend a really awesome parade.
Yeah, we happened to be there during, and we talked about that a little bit, just the big, awesome New Orleans parade that they were doing for Halloween. It was so much fun. It's not very many parades you go to where they give out mini bottles.
Yeah, our friends were like, so it was Kristen's birthday, and our friends were like, we're going to go see a parade. Yay. And we're like, oh, no. New Orleans parades are very different. And we did some lives. If you go and look, it was at the beginning of the parades, but they went for hours and hours. And yeah, mini bottles, moon pies, peeps, beads, like all different kinds of really cool stuff. I mean, and it's just junk, but it's really fun because they throw it all in there and you catch them. And the cool thing too is everyone in the parade was dressed up like Halloween stuff.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fun.
And my favorite were all of the really older men that were overweight. And they were dancing.
What were they called? Because they had do you remember?
I can't remember, but I was dying laughing. It was so funny.
Yeah, it was awesome because you had all walks of life there. Everyone was just at the parade, enjoying themselves, having fun, and it just felt good.
Yeah.
It was just good energy. People were happy. It was Kristen's birthday. Everybody showed up for her birthday because they love her. And, it just very different than like parades you get here in Utah where they're just so boring.
They're so politicized, right? Everybody buy this from me, or this is, like this didn't feel like that. I didn't feel like it was a walking billboard.
Well, it was a walking billboard because they were, sponsored by Monster Energy, sponsored by Rockstar, So
Right.
every float and everything, it was a walking billboard. It just, they covered it up a lot better by throwing cool shit,
And dancing and
having fun.
oh my gosh, so fun.
It wasn't
Yeah.
just an old car with a sign on it. It was, people actually had fun.
So we went through the garden district too. We got on a trolley. And this is where Kristen lost her penis. And she was super sad. On her birthday, she lost it.
Oh, it's detachable.
Yeah.
Detachable penis.
We had to buy her a new one. Anyways, what did you feel about the garden district? What did you think?
Do you know, I would have liked to have had a car to be able to drive through the area, I think. There were some big, beautiful homes. I mean, but that's, and we got to see the college, and it's a beautiful area. But I had expected more. And maybe it's because of the time of year we went. It was starting to get cold, and so it wasn't as overgrown and lush as maybe it usually is.
I thought that their yards were really beautiful. And that I was disappointed that all of the cemeteries were locked.
Yeah, all the cemeteries we went to were all locked up.
And you had to have a tour guide to take you in, and they were all booked. So we didn't get to go into a cemetery, which totally sucks. I mean, Brad and I have been in one, but in the St. Louis Cemetery one, we've been in one the first time we went to New Orleans.
Mhm.
But I was hoping Kristen and Wyland would have been able to see a cemetery, but they were all locked.
But we got to see them from the outside.
Yeah, and we met some really cool people that were doing the same thing we were.
Yeah, looking through the gates going, wow, that looks really cool. Well, the crazy thing is, it said it was closed for renovation, but there was no one working in there.
No.
It was literally just locked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of disappointing. The thing that got me, the homeless that were there.
A lot of homeless.
A lot of homeless people. And I mean, we even walked past some churches during the evenings, and there were homeless people on the steps of the church asleep. And I was like, they should be in the church, on the pews or whatever. They shouldn't be. We're Americans. We shouldn't be sleeping on the street. What the fuck?
Yeah.
It's disturbing me. It's really sad. And then there's our Lyft drivers. We had some really cool Lyft drivers.
Gosh. Yeah, so we've got to tell stories about this. So we had a couple of Lyft drivers that were just so much fun. So I'm going to start with the last one first. He drove us to the airport. And as we're driving out, we're talking, and, the whole spirits of New Orleans comes up, and he starts telling us how he would feel his uncle, because he was the executor of his uncle's estate, and he took the money and bought a plot in one of the cemeteries because his uncle had always wanted the family to have a plot in the cemetery. But his family was upset with him because he had done this. And he just was like talking to his uncle, like, did I do the right thing? Did I make you happy? And he actually said he saw his uncle, and the uncle just smiled and nodded at him. And he knew that he had made the right choice. Like, so cool.
Yeah, really, really cool. And I never realized how people in the South, especially Black people in the South, are so accepting of the paranormal. And because the people that we ran into, they didn't act like there was a division in color or in belief systems or anything like that. We were all just Americans, and we were just having fun. But both of our drivers were both older. One was a woman, one was the man that Brad was just talking about. The guy, super cool, really awesome energy, and he had cornrows and longer hair. So, but you wouldn't think he was I think he said he was 46.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. He looked like he was in his 20s.
Yeah.
Oh, great genetics. In fact, speaking of genetics, he was telling us a story. And this is awesome. So he said that during Katrina, everyone was displaced, right? You couldn't find family. There was no cell service. It was just a nightmare trying to get everyone back together. So he's with his uncle and some of his family. They're trying to find grandma. They couldn't find his grandma anywhere. Well, he had heard through the grapevine that some of the people from her area had been taken to LSU to stay in the stadium where the athletes would stay. They had like dorms in the stadium. So he loads up in the car with his uncles to go down and see if grandma's there. As they're driving through the neighborhood, they see these ladies out playing cards. And he's like, I think that's grandma. And sure shit, it was. So they were able to reunite with her. But as they pull up to get her, she looks at him and she goes, you can keep on driving because I didn't call you all motherfuckers to come get me. She was enjoying herself with the ladies just playing cards. He's like, my grandma was a gangster. She used to carry around a 45. You didn't mess with my grandma.
Exactly, right? She didn't feel like she was in danger at all. But there were like, convicts that were displaced, and it was crazy out there.
Well, and they said that, for example, in the Superdome, because a lot of people got housed in the Superdome, obviously, but because they had, criminals and everyone was in there. And maybe I shouldn't say it like that, but they literally had predators in there who were committing sexual assaults, who were victimizing people while they were at the lowest low of their lives. And you had these horrible people who decided that they were just going to make things worse.
Right. And then they also told us that they put them on buses and sent them to other states. And Utah was one of the states that got them.
Utah got a lot of people. We actually flew people in from New Orleans to Utah. They all stayed at Camp Williams. They had Camp Williams set up with cots all through the buildings to house people. And they had the same type of thing happen there. It was, they had sexual assaults. They had robberies. It was really ugly.
Well, and the lady that was our Uber driver, she's the one that told us that, they were the worst of the worst. That's who we were shipping out because their own people were being assaulted. And so they were the first to go because they didn't have anywhere to put them.
Yeah.
It was interesting, too, because I was able to ask some questions that I typically wouldn't ask a Black person just because I would be afraid to.
Why do you think you would be afraid to?
I think because
that's a hard question.
I think because of what I've seen on social media and stuff that they might take offense. But I was able to ask her because she started talking about the projects. And she said that kids nowadays don't understand where the projects came from and why they were there. And she was 56. I know she was like 2 years younger than me. So she's like 56. And it was late when she was driving with us. So she talked to us for quite a while. But she was explaining, I said, so are the projects just like low income housing? And she's like, yes and no. She's like, yes, like the lowest of low income housing. And she's like, why do you not have projects in Utah? And I said, no, I've never been to a project or known what one was. And I've kind of been nervous to even ask because you see it on movies and stuff like that, but you don't really understand.
Well, they're typically government funded housing developments, right? Or housing projects so that the government can subsidize rent and help people live. So it's, I mean, look, I've been in super, poor situations in my life where we had to get assistance to live.
Oh, same. And we lived in California though, and they weren't projects.
Right.
They were the same thing, but they were just called low income housing.
Right.
And we, in my earliest marriages, we lived in low income housing. I just wanted to know what the difference was. And she was really kind, to explain it. But she also said that the projects began during the war and they were actually meant for the military to live there because the Louisiana area is where they built ships for the war.
Yeah, they built a lot of ships for the war.
Which I thought was fascinating. So that's how they originated. And then the government just moved them in. But she also
They're like, hey, we have these buildings, let's use them.
Right. She also said something really interesting. She said, she just shook her head and she says, they let that levee break. They let it purposefully break to get rid of the scum of this city. And then she just shook her head like just in disgust. And I was like, holy crap. Like I've never even thought of that. But looking at what the government has done throughout time, even since Katrina, it makes you really wonder, it makes you scratch your head and be like, is that what they do to do a land grab? Do they let natural disasters happen so they can take over the land? Because that's
Well, and she was
doing.
talking about that, how like some of the movie stars had purchased that land for
Brad
cheap
Pitt
afterwards.
Had grabbed that land and built some major houses out there and stuff. So like,
well, he said we haven't confirmed that.
No, that's what she had told us. Yeah, I tend to believe her. She's pretty cool. I don't think she has any reason to lie. But I think it was really interesting because she said that kids these days don't know where their roots came from, or else they wouldn't act the way that they do. And I didn't. I don't know. I was a big fan of both of our Lyft drivers. They were very cool.
Yeah, we met some really neat people while we were there.
Yeah.
But you did make an interesting cultural reference how so many of the people who we met who were Black, but their culture accepts, spirits in the past, and they're a little afraid of it, but they accept it. Where a lot of the white people were just like, yeah, no, I don't really believe in that.
You know, it's Halloween times, and you look at different cultures. So like the show Coco, right? They honor their ancestors. They always talk about their ancestors. There are different cultures that are very into it. And I've never been around a Cajun culture or a Black culture to know how they do.
Yeah.
You know, and so we found out that they actually honor their ancestors as well. And they talk about them, and they love being able to see them and feel them close, just like us. And I think that the Western civilization...
They all said it scared them, though.
Oh, yeah.
It freaked them out, and they'd rather not see ghosts, but they do see them.
But they do see them. Yeah. I think it's just really cool that it happens to everyone, no matter the culture, no matter the people. It's who we are. We're souls having a human experience. And it doesn't matter, you know, our skin color, our religious beliefs, or even how we're brought up. It's just who we are. And if we can unite with that other side, it can be a pretty rich life.
Well, if you're in the right space, you're going to see that. Yeah.
Right frequency. Everything's about energy, right?
Absolutely is.
But yeah, I highly recommend New Orleans if you're into the ghost thing. Really awesome culture stuff.
Food.
Awesome beignets.
Oysters.
Char-grilled oysters. Yeah.
Yeah, all of it. The
Cajun
food
oysters.
is just amazing. Anyway, New Orleans is a very, very cool city.
Here's the thing, though. It's taken us 5 days to recover.
Yeah.
Not because of the alcohol or anything, but like our energy has just been zapped.
It was like we were around a bunch of energy vampires there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think there's something to that. And
Agreed.
I don't think they're people who are alive. I think it's energy suckers from the other side.
I agree. Well, and very rarely, so I have a balance called a brain integration balance. So when you have deep level switching in the brain and things aren't running correctly in the brain, people can have a really hard time. And when I balanced Brad and I, after a couple of days, we were so tired, I didn't even do it when we first got back. But after a couple of days, I balanced both of us, and we both had to have a brain integration balance from being in New Orleans. So kind of, if you're going to go, put your protection up and make sure that you're aware of all of your surroundings, especially the ghosty ones, because there's a lot of those.
Yes, there are. Well, I'll be going back in April, so maybe some of those places that we didn't get to visit, I'll make sure to go to.
Oh, so you're going without me for my birthday?
For your birthday.
Great.
I invited you, and you said, I don't know if I want to go there.
That's going to be hot.
It is going to be hot.
Yeah. I think I'll go to Hawaii with Kristen and Wylan.
Dick move, Nan.
If I'm going to be hot, I want a beautiful beach and turtles and scuba diving and, you know, all the things.
Fair enough. I'll go work, you go play.
All right, bitches.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We're so grateful for you. Make sure that you like the show. Make sure that you follow us on our social media, and make sure that you refer us to your friends. Let them know that you love this podcast and you think they will too.
We're super grateful for you. And remember, during this holiday season, remember who's important in your life and let them know that you love them, both on the other side and this one. And we'll see you
on the other side of the veil.